On today's episode, I want to go over how the Falcons can free up some cap space with NFL free agency. Believe it or not, less than a month away. It'll kick off unofficially on March 10th. That's when the legal tampering begins. And then officially on March 12th, the first day of the new league year. But the Falcons are in a little bit of a hole. This is from Over the Cap. They're around $11 million in the red. So they got to get cap compliant by the start of the new league year. So there are a couple of ways they can do that. There are some simple ways, right? They can always just cut people, things like that. But I want to go through how they got to where they are right now because people are going to look at this and be afraid of it. I don't think you should be afraid of it. There are 4 or 5 biggest cap hits. For one, if you have expensive roster, it usually means you're paying a lot of good players. So you look at their top 5 biggest cap hits, and while Cousins definitely not playing at the $40 million cap hit level, Lindstrom, Bates, Matthews, Grady Jarrett, these are all fine, worthy investments. I'd rather have a team that spends some money, and if they come up short, at least they tried, rather than be like the Oakland A's of the NFL. And we always have cap space because we never spend money on good players. So now let's talk about how they can free up some cap space to get in the green. Step 1, 3 restructure candidates. Now, first things first. I don't want to mansplain, but what is a contract restructure? A contract restructure is not a pay cut. It is not the player doing the team a big favor. A contract restructure is taking a player's base salary and prorating it over the remaining years of their contract into a signing bonus. Why does not every team do this? Well, you need an owner who will sign a signing bonus check that day. Not every owner wants to sign that big of a check. That's one part of it. Another part of it is you push money down the line for their contract. If you don't think they're going to be a part of your team towards the end of the contract and you want to get out of their contract early, don't restructure someone because you'll be left with a big bill at the end. Whereas, hey, we think this guy's going to be here for the long haul, we're thinking of extending him, then restructure, push the money down, and then when that new contract comes, you have more years to spread that cap hit over. So here are 3 players that I think are prime restructure candidates. Chris Lindstrom, Jesse Bates, and Jake Matthews. These are all players I think we can agree are on a good track to be here for the rest of their contract. There's no plans of moving on from a year or two early. They are also 3 players who I think could get another contract from Atlanta, and then you have more years to spread that cap hit over. So Lindstrom just entering the prime of his career. Bates continue to play at an all-pro level. Jake Matthews, I think, is going to get another contract from Atlanta. We've seen some great offensive linemen play past the age of 35. And Matthews is, last time I checked, like 33 years old. And I think this is going to be his last year of his deal. So I could see him getting a new contract, and then you can spread that cap hit over the new years on that deal. This frees up about $24 million in salary cap space. Now, if you still don't really understand the cap works, I'm not with you there because I spent a lot of time trying to learn it myself. But even I myself find myself at times searching stuff up because the salary cap is very confusing and it's kind of a myth, but it's also very real. So if you want more just knowledge on this subject, subscribe, and I'm going to do my absolute best to teach it to you in a digestible, simple way. The second way Atlanta can free up some more cap space is probably the simplest way. Cut players. That is like the bare bones. If you want to free up cap space, take expensive contracts off of your roster. So here are 3 cut candidates for Atlanta that would have a sizable impact on the salary cap. Grady Jarrett, Caleb McGarry, and David Onyemata. You cut all 3 of these guys, and you free up nearly $40 million in cap space. Now, I'm not advertising or suggesting that all 3 should be cut. But if you don't want to restructure for whatever reason, which, by the way, you know who loves to restructure contracts? The Eagles. I think they're doing pretty well. But if you don't want to go down that path, here's another alternative route. Jarrett and Onyemata. Let's start with these two guys here, and then we'll talk about McGarry. They're both on the wrong side of 30. I thought Onyemata played better than Jarrett did last season. But I think we can all agree that Grady Jarrett is a huge leader and part of the locker room. So the question that Raheem Morris and this front office are going to have to ask themselves is, do they believe in their 2024 draft picks, Rucororo and Brandon Dorlus, to step into a larger role? They drafted them at similar positions on the defensive line, and usually that's kind of the writing on the wall of, we found your replacements. Now we got to wait and see, do the Falcons want to turn it over to those guys, or do they feel like they're not starting quality players just yet? Let's hold on to our veterans a little bit longer. I personally don't want to move on from either one, but I also understand $16 million and $8 million is a good chunk of change that you can save on. As for Caleb McGarry, here's the tough part. He's a good run blocker. I know people like to dog on him and whatnot. He's a better run blocker than pass blocker, but you have a lefty starting quarterback, and your blindside tackle is an average at best, and that's going to be on a good day, pass protector. So it's not a great fit. And if you feel like we need to go a different direction at right tackle to shore up Penix's blind side, then maybe McGarry gets the axe. There's very little dead money tied to his contract, $14 million in cap savings. I wish I had like a bit of a backbone to say right now which of these three guys I would cut. I would like to say all three should stay. I know that Jarrett and Onyemata are getting older, and you guys can make the decision of who you would like to see Atlanta cut right now. And McGarry is not a good pass protector. There are plenty of valid reasons to move on from maybe all three of these guys right here. But they didn't draft an offensive tackle last year. And while it's only 1 year, I wasn't all that encouraged by what I saw from the rookie defensive lineman. And for a defense that was not very good, I don't know if moving on from two of your better players is going to improve this team. But Bill Belichick always says it's better to move on from a guy 1 year too early than 1 year too late. The third way you can free up some cap space: trade contracts away. This is probably the least common way that teams go about freeing up cap space. They usually make trades that are incentivized by acquiring draft picks, not we just want to get rid of contracts. There's really only one big, notable, obvious trade candidate from a money-saving side: Kyle Pitts. Trade Kyle Pitts, you trade away his fully guaranteed fifth-year option, which clocks in at $10.8 million. Now, maybe a team doesn't want to take on that $10.8 million. They want to take on $5 million. Well, you can split the $10.8 million, and you get a better draft pick in return because the other team's not paying all $11 million. That does happen pretty often. This is where the room gets mad and people start throwing tomatoes at me right now. I'm just looking at Kyle Pitts' numbers. Someone give me a good reason why a guy who played all 17 games the last 2 years and saw his targets go down from 90 to 74 should be on the books for nearly $11 million. Someone give me a good reason why someone who played less than 50% of snaps 4 out of the last 5 weeks going into Week 18 against the Panthers should be on the books for another $11 million. I'm not here to say I don't believe in Kyle Pitts or I think he's a bust or anything like that. But it does not make sense to have that much of a cap space devoted to a player who is not being used enough. Why spend $10.8 million on a guy who's playing 45% of snaps? He was not a fit down the stretch in the Atlanta's offense. He had a big touchdown against the Commanders, and outside of that, very little notable plays. So, if you can tell me how spending $10.8 million on him is a good investment, I'm with you. But if Pitts comes back for another 600-yard season and 3 touchdowns and plays 50% of snaps, that is a bad usage of $10.8 million. So now we'll see everyone flood the comments with no. I know moving on from a 4th overall pick is a major sign of defeat, but Atlanta has to figure out a plan with Kyle Pitts, or they need to move on from him and get something for him while they can, because it's not heading on a good direction for him to come back in free agency. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Make sure you subscribe down below if you have not already. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit the thumbs up button as always. And also, let me know you're still watching by the end of the video by dropping an ATL in the comment section.